Turns green.
It stays on.
It's on now. And then when you're done,
So, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Finance and Administration Committee to order for Tuesday, February 4th. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest, nature thereof? Seeing none. Moving on. I'd like to get the motion to approve the minutes. Pardon? Oh, sorry. Correction. We'll approve the agenda first. Motion to approve the agenda of the meeting. Moved by Councillor Reevy, second by Councillor Giacono. All in favor? Approved. Next up, move the approval of the minutes of January 7th. Moved by Councillor Abdallah, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. All in favor? Approved. Next up, new business. First is the Pembroke Fire Department monthly report. Chief Herbeck.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here again. This is, as you said, our January monthly report, running from January 1st to the 29th. In our prevention and public education activities, we had fire drills at Supples Landing, the Pembroke Regional Hospital, and the Columbus House Young Parent Support Home. During the month of January, we did a fire hall tour for a child's birthday party. This was part of a charity auction item. Went over very well, and I heard the charity raised a lot of funds for us to host a birthday party at the fire hall. It was really well done. As well as we had another young 4-year-old aspiring firefighter stop by for a visit with his family. Myself, I attended at the Labor Relations Conference in Toronto, and I'm sure I've told you this before. This is put on by the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs. This is regarding negotiations, grievances, and labor law in the service, and anything that goes along with the fire service and law. Extinguisher demonstrations and safety talks. We did one to the children at the Garden Nursery School. This is a mistake on the report that you received, speaking of vulnerable occupancy inspections and drills. This was not our regular annual inspection or our vulnerable occupancy drill. What it really was a completion of last year's inspection. So it was accidentally put in as a vulnerable occupancy, but it was just a completion of last year's inspection. The Pembroke Professional Firefighters Association, at a family's request, attended the funeral services for a retired North York firefighter named Barry McMahon. This was held at the Pembroke Legion. They also moved a mechanical bed to a patient's residence on behalf of the Pembroke Regional Hospital. This is the first time I knew they had done this, but it's my understanding they've done this 2 or 3 times. The hospital has leaned on the firefighters in their off-duty time and as an association to help them move a bed that somebody doesn't have family members to help out with, so they've done that a few times. In our emergency operations meeting room, the Neighborhood Watch Committee meeting was held in the EOC room. In our career firefighter training, again, you can see that there's a very long list of the different things that they trained on during the month. But during the month of January, the focus was on water rescue testing, which is done at the Kinsman Pool. This is an annual test to test their capabilities in the water and the different type of skills that they need with some of the equipment. Other than the boat, all of the equipment is taken out and they're tested and practiced with. We did naloxone administration, which was also very important. Natural gas awareness training, in which we had an instructor come from Toronto to Ottawa, and then he came down to Pembroke to do this. We did our online training, and when he was here, we did the hands-on training. And then we had our SRB training also. This is an annual training where we attend to SRB and learn all about the hazards that accompany that type of an industry. In our volunteer training for the month, they also trained on natural gas awareness. Every one of our members was part of that. They had ropes, webbing, and knots, and they also attended the orientation tour at SRB Technologies. In our inspections and consultations, you'll see that we did a total of 74. We found 23 violations during these inspections, and we had 47 violations that have been cleared off from previous inspections. In our incidents during the month, you'll note we had 26. Generally, we're averaging 25. And we had an estimated dollar loss for those calls at 0. Had no fire loss during the month. In our false alarms, you'll see that we had no letter of warnings, no fines issues, no fines paid, no fines canceled, and we have 1 fine outstanding from late December.
Question for the chief? Councillor Reevy?
Thank you, Chair. Not really a question, just a comment, Chief. Regarding the EOC meeting room, we're so lucky to have this available to members of the public. I know the Accessibility Advisory Committee does rely on the use of this room in the winter months. One of our members is in a large motorized wheelchair, so it's so much easier to get her into that meeting room. So we really appreciate that. A good addition.
Councillor Abdallah?
I just have a comment, Chief. Thank you very much for putting on another successful kids fishing derby at the Snow Spree. It was very well attended and everybody had a lot of fun. You know, you got help from the city, operations department and other staff and plus the firefighters association. So please extend our thanks to them once again.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, I will, and I just wanted to make a comment about it that the Firefighters Association took this on as part of the Snow Spree, and I believe it was outside of the Snow Spree week this year, but it's just growing to be such a great thing, and the kids all love it, and I'm sure it's something they're going to keep going for a long time.
Seeing any further other questions? Seeing none? Thank you, Chief. Moving on.
Thank you.
Monthly accounts. See Mr. Terry.
Yes, sir. In the absence of the treasurer, this is an information item only for committee members, and it covers a period of December 2019, and it overviews all of the payments that were made with respect to the operation of the city, and all of the payments were made within the council-approved allocated budgets, or in those cases where it was outside that budget, approval was required, or as required, was gained by the appropriate committee.
Any questions, CAO, about the monthly accounts? Seeing none, moving on. Building review 273 Victoria Street. Mr. Lapierre.
Yes, 273 Victoria Street is the former City of Pembroke Fire Hall, and staff is seeking direction and is recommending the pre-approval of the $10,000 that is placed in the 2020 budget for a study with respect to the potential demolition of the 3 large apparatus bays that are currently attached to the admin portion of that building. On June the 4th, staff did bring a report forward to committee, and we were suggesting that a study be done to determine the feasibility of removing those particular bays in order to provide additional public parking. So the Finance and Admin Committee has approved $10,000 in the 2020 budget, but is yet to go to council to be ratified, and it's scheduled to do so on February the 18th. So by providing the pre-approval, we get a 2-week jump start on this particular study, which is very important because it will provide council the information it needs to look at the various options on demolition of the 3 bays, or leaving 1 bay, which is being suggested by the proponents, being the Grind and the kitchen initiative, the community kitchen initiative. And also it will assist that group in determining its plans for the building, and will assist staff in preparing the required lease to come before council.
Questions, motions? Councillor Frenier?
I would move we approve the pre-approval for the grants and be expedited.
Motion on the floor, seconded? Second, Councillor Adala. Further question or comments? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Approved. That concludes the motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Lafreniere, second by His Worship. All in favor? Adjourned.
I would like to call this meeting of the Planning and Development Committee to order for Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. Do I have any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, I would request a motion to approve or amend the meeting agenda. Councillor Abdallah, Councillor Plummer, all in favor? Carried. And approval of the minutes for the committee meeting of January 7th, 2020. Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Abdallah, all in favor? Carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Item A is a community improvement plan request for 138, 140, and 142 Pembroke Street West and 185 Prince Street, 62 Pembroke Street West, and 67 Pembroke Street West. So Heather Sutherland will bring us the information for that.
Yes, thank you. So we have already started the year with 4 new community improvement plan applications, which the Community Improvement Advisory Panel has looked at. So the recommendation is that all 4 of them be approved in the total amount of $34,852.28 from the CIP account. The detailed applications are one for Sleepwell Property Management, owner of 138/140/142 Pembroke Street West, in the amount of $21,102.28. Second one is for Arif Enterprises, Inc., owner of 185 Prince Street, to receive $5,000. Third and fourth are both Arif Enterprises, Inc. as well. First for 62 Pembroke Street West to receive $5,000, and then for 67 Pembroke Street West to receive $3,750. So the panel met on January 29th to discuss the 4 applications where the applicants were both present. The work being done under these 4 applications, first for 138, 140, 142 Pembroke Street West. So here they're applying for a facade improvement grant, a downtown housing grant, and the planning and building permit fee grant. So they'd be fully renovating 3 apartments in the upstairs of the unit, as well as redesigning the facade to make for 2 commercial units. Then the 3 applications from Arif Enterprises, Inc. are all for the Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant. At 185 Prince, what they're doing is installing new windows, painting the building exterior, replacing the brick, changing the entrance, installing lighting and signage, as well as new floor tiling outside and an awning. At 62 Pembroke Street West, the facade work includes painting the exterior of the building, removing the old signage, repainting the molding and the brick on the top of the building, as well as installing new soffit and pot lights. And then at 67 Pembroke Street West, the facade work includes painting the exterior of the building, so the crown molding and the storefront trim, installing outdoor floor tiling, and replacing, again, the soffit and installing pot lights. So, as a reminder to committee, the Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant applies to properties within the PBIA boundaries, and it's intended for the improvement to front or exterior facades that front onto a public street for commercial, mixed-use, or industrial properties. The Downtown Housing Grant is focused on development or redevelopment of upper-story residential units in the downtown core. And then we have the Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant, which is intended for the development or redevelopment of a property for commercial, office, or mixed uses. So generally, any projects which are eligible under other incentives in the plan are also eligible for the Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant, assuming they are required to obtain a building permit for the work done. So under the community improvement plan, there are to be no outstanding work orders or taxes against a property, and in all 4 of these applications, there were no concerns from the fire department, the building department, or the treasury department. And the panel highlighted that most of the quotes were obtained from local contractors, so they just like to comment on seeing the economic spin-off that this brings to the community. So in terms of financial implication, 138/140/142 Pembroke Street West is eligible for $10,000 under the facade improvement grant, $10,000 under the housing grant, and $1,102.28 under the planning and building permit fee grant. So a total of $21,102.28. 185 Prince is eligible for $5,000 under the facade grant, 62 eligible for $5,000 under the facade grant, and 67 Pembroke Street West eligible for $3,750 under the facade grant. So again, that total being $34,852.28. Presently, there is $50,000 approved in the draft 2020 budget under this budget line.
Thank you. Councillor Abdallah?
I motion we approve the $34,852.28 from the CIP account for these 4 grants.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Frenier? Further comments?
So here we are on the heels of a budget discussion, and we were saying we wonder how many will come in, and here we are, 4 of them. So it's good that the momentum has not slowed down. We thought maybe it had for a little while, but as it was mentioned in budgets, it was because those projects were just finishing. And so, great, good stuff.
Councillor Jacquinot?
Madam Chair, it's wonderful to see the retrofit of our downtown, and of course the dollars are being infused through local contractors. People are working. I had the opportunity to walk from the West End tonight. Dropped in at a couple of new places. There's a new place opening. They had lingerie and various items, but they couldn't get anything to fit me. However, it just shows you that there's entrepreneurship here. They're local people, a lot of them opening these businesses. They have faith in the community, and we have to have faith in them. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Just a comment from the chair again, to see so much more revitalization taking place. And that's a reinvestment in our community and something that we can all be very proud of. Thank you. So we'll move on to item B, and this is I'm sorry. I call the question. Thank you. All in favor? Carry unanimously. Thank you. On to item B, the Chamber of Commerce Service Club signs. And once again, Heather.
Yes, so the recommendation here is from the Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee for the city to take over the Chamber of Commerce Service Club signs that are found at either end of Pembroke Street, with a design/development plan to come based on cost recovery. So in November of 2019, committee tabled the decision on this request from the Chamber of Commerce to send it to the Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee for discussion and a recommendation. So at our meeting of January 14th, the PEDTAC, as it's known, agreed that there's value in this signage for the city at the entrance of the city on either end of Pembroke Street, and that it would be worthwhile for the city to take over responsibility for these signs. If committee moves forward with this recommendation, PEDTAC would work to create a redesign/development plan for the two signs based on the concept of cost recovery. So in terms of financial implication, that will be dependent on the plan to come. However, the intention again is to create a plan based on full cost recovery. Therefore, this would have no financial implication for the city.
Thank you. Councillor Frenier?
So, we don't have a picture of it tonight, but we sure saw it the last time this was discussed, and let's face it, it leaves a lot to be desired. There, sorry. It leaves a lot to be desired aesthetically. It's not a very good-looking sign, and as long as it was zero cost, like I like the idea that it's going to be full cost recovery, because I don't think I want to spend any money of city tax dollars to fix up that sign, especially where it is. You know, if it was on Paul Martin Drive coming into the city, okay, that's the main gateway to our community. People traveling, I think, from east or west know Pembroke. They're either coming from Petawawa or they're coming from Cobden. So I'm glad that that was in there, but I'm still interested to see if it can come back, full cost recovery, what's going to be on it. So,
Thank you. Your worship?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that the city take over the responsibility for the signs.
Councillor Abdallah? Second. Thank you. Any further comments? Deputy Mayor?
Madam Chair, on those two signs, so there's two of them, there's a number of smaller signs, if I can put it that way, or a number of service groups. One of them presently missing from both locations is Kiwanis because of such misuse or simply just being no attention being paid to those particular signs. The Kiwanis signs fell down off of both locations. Kiwanis is presently in the process of redoing their decal signs, which is about the size of maybe a stop sign, if I can put it that way. And so that's what's going on right now. My understanding is one of the other service clubs is presently redoing their signs as well. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out is when I understand what his worship's motion is, and it doesn't say anything about the concept of cost recovery, but I'm trying to understand the idea of cost recovery. Is it that whoever wants to have their sign on there is going to be the organizations that are going to pay to renovate and rejuvenate the bigger structure that presently I think has swallows or something on it? So I'm curious whether it's that or is it that you know, and maybe it's in an infancy stage and we haven't really thought this one out yet. I'm trying to figure out the concept of the cost recovery so it doesn't cost the taxpayers monies, because as I say, the Kiwanis Club is already having their sign fixed up and so forth, and we're going to put it back on the structure that's there now. So I'm trying to figure out what that means.
Thank you. Heather, do you have, or Terry?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This was discussed at PEDTAC, as was indicated, and the thought from that group was to recommend to committee that the cost of repairing or replacing the signs, whatever works to be done, should not cost the taxpayers any money. So those organizations, institutions, anybody that might be on there, the cost of the required works on the sign would be recouped by those individuals. So it would be a one-time fee, or it could be, none of that has really been discussed in detail yet, but that's why I was going to ask the question of the mayor with respect to his motion. Is that what the committee's looking at, so that staff can come back with a plan based on a full cost recovery, or is committee not interested in directing that? I just need that direction for staff.
Through you, Chair, I think it's a case of it was made quite clear at the committee meeting that it's full cost recovery. So I would add that to the motion. That is not going to, the committee itself will come up with a plan to present to council, but it would be full cost recovery. In regards to the deputy mayor's question, again, it would be, for instance, you'd be responsible for your sign, Rotary for their sign, and so on. But as far as the structure is concerned, they would come up with a plan or a redesign of the sign at no cost to the city.
Deputy Mayor.
If I may, so then groups like Kiwanis, Knights of Columbus, Rotary Club, all these service clubs that do so much for the community would be responsible for the cost of the larger structure at the same time then?
They'd be responsible well, this is an early discussion. You'd be responsible for your own sign. I think that basically what the committee was, as far as the structure, they would come up with a plan where the structure itself would be financed, by businesses and so on. It's in the early development stage. But would there be an additional cost, for instance, to Kiwanis every year in regards to having their Kiwanis sign on there? I don't think so. It's a case of you would be responsible for that particular sign that you have now to be attached, and each one of the clubs would. But they're trying to come up with a redesign, as well, that would involve other aspects to the sign. Tourism being basically one of our priorities this year.
Councillor Lafreniere?
Just to clarify it, I think the only changing partner in this scenario is the chamber. Yeah. So we are going to take over the role of the chamber, more or less, to manage the sign. So really, that's what I'm understanding. Thank you.
Anything further? Councillor Abdallah?
Just want to follow up on the Deputy Mayor's comment. So the service clubs do so much for the community, and to go to them and say, you put a sign up is great, but it might come in the end that the city might have to spend some money out of economic development budget to pay for two structures when people come into the city and they see what services and service clubs there are. I don't think we should put the burden of the sign structure on the actual service club after all they do for the community. That's part of the investment in our community. And we currently have a budget we're approving on the 18th. Surely there's money in there, but as the mayor says, it's all premature. But just wanted to state my point.
Councillor Plummer?
Thank you. Seeing I sit on the Economic Development Committee as well, the discussions were there could be a combination of not only just service clubs, but also some advertising on the signs, and that could be a way to pay for the cost recovery of the sign. So we're not looking towards specifically just the service clubs to pay for the signs themselves. We're looking at a cost recovery, so therefore it's a no payment to the taxpayer coming out of our budget, but also if someone would want to advertise on the sign, they would then be paying for that space and a time allowance, and then therefore the city would collect money that way and then pay for the structure themselves.
Okay, so we have the motion on the floor essentially is not a financial one that we're deciding on any costs that the city would bear, but it's simply that we want to take over the service club signs and look forward to a design or the development of a plan. So any further comments to this? I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Finally, the City of Pembroke new comprehensive zoning bylaw and 2-year moratorium on zoning bylaw amendment applications. And Mr. Lapierre.
Yes, Madam
please.
Chair. In the absence of the city planner, staff is recommending that that committee recommends to council a resolution to recognize and permit amendments to be made to the City of Pembroke's comprehensive zoning bylaw within the 2-year period. So council has already adopted the comprehensive zoning bylaw on January the 21st. So I can advise that the current situation is that the province of Ontario has enacted Bill 73, being the Smart Growth for Our Communities Act, and that has implications on the Planning Act that the province has in place, and it would require that no bylaw amendments or minor variance applications can be submitted within 2 years or until after 2 years of the passing of the comprehensive zoning bylaw. So staff is of the opinion that this could cause issues for potential developers, and we're not recommending that. However, because that law is in place, we have to follow the requirements of it. So there is an option for council to, by resolution, authorize that these types of applications may be received and considered within that 2-year period. But it has to be by resolution by council. So you can change that rule, how it applies. You have a number of options, but that is the option that staff is recommending to ensure that we're supporting those that may wish to develop within the community. And you should point out as well, as if council does approve that, if this committee recommends to council that they approve it, that the current process would be the exact same. There'd be public notice, and as far as zoning bylaw amendments, that the ultimate control would be to council, and the minor variances would be to your committee that you've appointed to do that. So there'd be no change with respect to that.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Lafreniere?
Through the chair, this would include severances of property and things of that nature as well? If someone wanted to sever a lot, like make one big lot into 2 lots?
Well, we're talking about zoning bylaw amendments, you know, as well as minor variances, so it might be a little bit different as it relates to that. That may not be impacted by this at all, because I'm not certain, we'd have to ask the planner, but I think that might be a different process, because it's not a zoning bylaw amendment or a minor variance.
It would just simply
You
take
know.
a resolution.
That's right, for those ones that are affected, this resolution would cover those.
Thank you. Anything else? Further? No? So I know the resolution is coming before council this evening. Do we need a motion at this point?
You don't technically need a motion, it's coming before council anyways.
Okay, thank you. I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Abdallah, all in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you.
meeting of council, I would ask those who wish, each in your own way, each in your own words, aloud or silently, join in a prayer of guidance over these proceedings. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from all evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? None. Approval of our minutes from our council meeting held on January the 21st, 2020. Moved by Councillor Reevy, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Carried. Adopting the minutes from our Finance and Administration Committee meeting held January the 7th, 2020. Moved by Councillor Giacono, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. All those in favor? Carried. The Planning and Development Committee meeting held on January the 7th, 2020. Moved by Councillor Abdallah, seconded by Councillor Reevy. All those in favor? Carried. Motions, removing the 2-year moratorium for applications on new zoning bylaw. Councillor Reevy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Whereas on January 21st, 2020, the Council of the Corporation of the City of Pembroke enacted bylaw 2020-05 to adopt the City of Pembroke's comprehensive zoning bylaw. And whereas under Section 34(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, zoning bylaws may be passed to prohibit and regulate the use of land, building, and structures. And whereas under Bill 73, Smart Growth for Our Communities Act, the Ontario Planning Act, RSO 1990, was subject to a number of amendments. And whereas Section 34, 10.0.0.1 of the Planning Act now implements a 2-year moratorium on zoning bylaw amendment and minor variance application submissions after the passing of a new comprehensive zoning bylaw. And whereas Section 34, 10.0.0.2 of the Planning Act states that Section 34, 10.0.0.1 does not apply in respect of an application if Council has declared by resolution that such application is permitted. The resolution may be made in respect to a specific application, a class of applications, or all applications. And whereas the new zoning bylaw may not be able to capture every development concept nor account for unknown site-specific constraints that may encumber a parcel of land or use. Further, it is necessary and appropriate to continue to permit applications to amend or seek relief from the City of Pembroke's comprehensive zoning bylaw due to site constraints, innovation in project development, market demands, shifts and changes in development, etc. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Pembroke, pursuant to Section 34, 10.0.0.2 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, approve that all lands zoned in the City of Pembroke Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2020-05 shall not be subject to Section 34, 10.0.0.1 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990. This decision shall permit zoning bylaw amendments and minor variance applications to be submitted at any time after the passing of Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2020-05.
This resolution is moved by Councillor Reevy and the Deputy Mayor Gervais. Instead of rereading it, is Council in favor of the resolution? All those in favor? Carry unanimously. Thank you. Resolution 02-911, Ms. Stiles, Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Reevy. Whereas the calls for service for 911 missed dials have risen dramatically in recent years, correlated with the rise in cell phone use. And whereas 911 missed dials like pocket dial, tie up emergency lines, communicators, and officers, and can result in slower responses to a real emergency, risking the safety of people who may need urgent help. And whereas each 911 call is a billable call to the municipality, And whereas the OPP recently updated its 911 call handling workflow and policies to allow its emergency communicators more discretion to divert certain 911 calls and ensure more frontline OPP members are available for actual emergencies. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Pembroke requests the municipal, federal, and provincial governments and relevant associations be requested to lobby the telecommunications industry and smartphone manufacturers to develop a solution to the 911 misdials. And further, be it resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Honorable Bill Blair, Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, MP Cheryl Gallant, MPP John Yakubuski, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Ontario Association of Police Services Boards, Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, TELUS, Bell, Rogers, and telecommunications companies. Thank you.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gervais, seconded by Councillor Reevy. Whereas the calls for service for 911 misdials have risen dramatically in recent years, correlated with the rise in cell phone use, and whereas 911 misdials, like pocket dials, tie up emergency lines, communicators, and officers, and can result in a slower response to a real emergency, risking the safety of people who may need urgent help, and whereas each 911 call is a billable call to the municipality, and whereas the OPP recently updated its 911 call handling workflow and policies to allow its emergency communicators more discretion to divert certain 911 calls and ensure more frontline OPP members are available for actual emergencies. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the City of Pembroke requests the municipal, federal, and provincial governments and relevant associations be requested to lobby the telecommunications industry and smartphone manufacturers to develop a solution to 911 misdials. And further, be it resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Honourable Bill Blair, Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, MP Cheryl Gallant, MPP John Yakubuski, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Ontario Association of Police Services Boards, Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, TELUS, Bell, Rogers, telecommunication companies. Any comments, Deputy Mayor?
Simply to say, Your Worship, that the Police Services Board has been watching this issue of 911 misdials, also known as butt calls or any number of names for it. It is causing a concern, not only in terms of our detachment, but detachments across Ontario. And so that one item there having to do with the changes by the OPP Commissioner, if there's certain criteria met, no longer does the OPP have to respond to it. It's because they simply cannot handle the operational pressures of attending each and every 911 cell phone misdial, nor can they financially afford to do it. And obviously, as it says, the burden falls eventually to the municipality. So hopefully, in addition to the change that the OPP has undertaken, hopefully perhaps the phone companies that develop these devices will see to ensuring that they don't allow for simply butt calls going up on a gondola or something.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Okay, carried unanimously. Resolution 3, the Community Improvement Plan. Councillor Giacomo.
Your Worship, members of council, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Plummer. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approve the application from Sleepwell Property Management of 138-140-142 Pembroke Street West under the Community Improvement Plan's Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant, Downtown Housing Grant, and Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant. The applicant must comply with grant guidelines and will have 18 months to complete all work and submit receipts in order to receive the grant. This application for 138-140-142 Pembroke Street West is approved for up to $21,102.28 under the Community Improvement Plan and awaiting your signature, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Giacomo, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approve the application from Sleepwell Property Management of 138, 140, 142 Pembroke Street West under the Community Improvement Plan's Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant, Downtown Housing Grant, and Planning and Building Permit Fee Grant. The applicant must comply with grant guidelines and will have 18 months to complete all work and submit receipts in order to receive the grant. This application for 138, 140, and 142 Pembroke Street West is approved for up to $21,102.28 under the Community Improvement Plan.
Your worship, members of council, as I stated earlier, there's a resurgence in the downtown, and that's thanks to the, I think this council and previous councils and the Economic Development Department, as well as the PBIA. There are new restaurants, there's new shops, there's lady shops. And speaking with a few of the business people, there's one gal selling wedding dresses who has customers in Quebec City. So, when you look at that and the online business that can take place, that's a wonderful thing. The dollars that are expended through this grant come back to the city in numerous ways, through increased assessment, through taxation, et cetera. And what really riles me, your worship and members of council, is when I hear about these people getting on a bus trip to go to Ottawa to shop all day, and then they're the first people to complain about the taxes being too high when you're knocking on their door during the election. I would say to them, if you want your taxes lowered or kept at a decent rate as we have during this budget process, then shop here. Make the effort, rather than going to buy a ticket to get on the bus, go and shop here. Go to lunch here and support, the people around you. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, carried. 185 Prince Street, Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Frene. Be it resolved, the Corporation City of Pembroke approve the application for Arif Enterprise Inc. of 185 Prince Street under the Community Improvement Plan Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant. The applicant must comply with the grant guidelines and will have 18 months to complete all work and submit receipts in order to receive the grant. The application for 185 Prince Street is approved for up to $5,000 under the Community Improvement Plan.
Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approve the application from Arif Enterprises Incorporated of 185 Pembroke Street under the Community Improvement Plan's Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant. The applicant must comply with grant guidelines and will have 18 months to complete all work and submit receipts in order to receive the grant. This application for 185 Prince Street is approved for up to $5,000 under the Community Improvement Plan. Any comments? All those in favor? Carried. 67 Pembroke Street West, 62 Pembroke Street West, Councillor Lafreniere.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approve the application from Arif Enterprises Incorporated of 62 Pembroke Street West under the Community Improvement Plan's Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant. The applicant must comply with grant guidelines and will have 18 months to complete all work and submit receipts in order to receive the grant. This application for 62 Pembroke Street West is approved for up to $5,000 under the Community Improvement Plan.
Moved by Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approve the application from Arif Enterprises Incorporated of 62 Pembroke Street West under the Community Improvement Plan's Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant. The application must comply with grant guidelines and will have 18 months to complete all work and submit receipts in order to receive the grant. This application of 62 Pembroke Street West is approved for up to $5,000 under the Community Improvement Plan. Any comments?
Only that Councillor Jackno said it quite well, is that these are investments in our community, and as the assessment goes up, it does offset the tax rates for the other residents in the community.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Okay, carried. 67 Pembroke Street West, Councillor Lafreniere.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approve the application from Arif Enterprises Incorporated of 67 Pembroke Street West under the Community Improvement Plan's Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant. The applicant must comply with grant guidelines and will have 18 months to complete all work and submit receipts in order to receive the grant. This application for 67 Pembroke Street West is approved for up to $3,750 under the Community Improvement Plan.
Moved by Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approve the application from Reef Enterprises Incorporated at 67 Pembroke Street West under the Community Improvement Plan's Downtown Heritage Facade Improvement Grant. The applicant must comply with grant guidelines and will have 18 months to complete all work and submit receipts in order to receive the grant. This application for 67 Pembroke Street West is approved for up to $3,750 under the Community Improvement Plan.
More good news. Yep.
All those in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. Resolution 7, Climate Emergency Declaration, Councillor Abdallah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Christine Reeve, that Council for the Corporation of the City of Pembroke actively pursue the declaration of a climate emergency, as more than 475 other municipalities in Ontario and Canada have already done. And further, that staff be directed to report back on the matter of the establishment of a Climate Action Advisory Committee at the committee meeting scheduled for February 18th, 2020.
Thank you. Okay, the resolution or the motion's on the floor. Any comments? Would the mover, you have a comment? Councillor Abdallah?
I'd like to comment. I was at home, thinking about what to say on the matter. And it's a big thing for Pembroke. It's a big thing for Brantford County, the world. We know the climate is changing, and I was going to spew out all this scientific data, but people either believe in climate change, or they sort of, or they don't believe in climate change, and it comes down to a matter of values. We see the oceans getting warmer, the coral reefs getting destroyed. The floods we had in Brantford County here, the hotter summers, things are happening. Scientists have known since 1850 that burning fossil fuel and coal releases heat, which creates a surrounding barrier that keeps the heat in, greenhouse gases. Robert F. Kennedy said it best when he said, "Every generation inherits a world it never made. And as it does so, it automatically becomes the trustee of that world for those who come after. In due course, each generation makes its own accounting to its children." So we have to make accounting to our children and children's children for generation. It's a conversation you have to have. There's a Canadian scientist, and her name is Catherine Hayhoe. And she sums it up best. You need to talk about climate change. You need to talk about family values, Christian values, hobbies. We're put on this earth. Do you care about the world? Do you like to go fishing? Well, what are we going to do about it? And she says every single person in the world already has the values they need to come to care about a changing climate. They just haven't connected the dots. And it's what we can do through conversation with them to connect the dots. And some people say it's a liberal, you're conservative, that's a liberal NDP thing, socialist, left-wing, media conspiracy. Well, she has another quote about that. Bottom line is, you don't have to be a liberal-hugging tree hugger to care about a changing climate. All we have to be is a human living on this planet, because no matter where we live, climate change is affecting us today. So there's hope, there's conversation, and over 400 municipalities in Canada, have adopted the motion. And I just want to make it clear, this motion is that we actively pursue the declaration of a climate emergency, and we form a committee. And I would like CAO Mr. Lapierre to speak on the meeting he had with the Climate Justice Pembroke Group, and how this would develop from here if it gets accepted, this motion in the committee, in terms of reference.
Thank you, Councillor Abdallah. Yes, I did meet with the representatives of the climate change group this past Friday, as directed at the last committee. And as a result of that meeting, you have before you the resolution for council consideration. So if this motion does carry this evening, then the next step will be that I will be required, as per the resolution, to bring back a report to committee on February the 18th with respect to the potential adoption of a climate advisory committee for the city. So what will happen then, as part of that report, it will include what would be the terms of reference for this particular committee, as well as the composition. So if that is adopted by committee, if they approve that, then the next step would be to invite interested parties that would like to participate on this particular advisory committee to do so in writing, which is similar to your other advisory committees. That's the process. And then your striking committee would then make the recommendations to council with respect to the appointment of individuals to that advisory committee.
Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Worship. Canada produces 1.6% of global greenhouse gases. If Canada adopted a zero carbon production plan, it would not only destroy the Canadian economy, but on a larger global scale do next to nothing to reduce overall global greenhouse gas emissions. The environment is important to all of us. We must do all our part to care for our planet, but I'm not going to support declaring a climate emergency that does nothing to solve the problem. I am in support of creation of a climate action committee to look at the activities of the City of Pembroke to make recommendations on improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giacono.
Your Worship, members of council, and to the folks that are here tonight. As Councillor Abdallah said, we are stewards of the land. It is our responsibility to leave the next generation with something to look forward to. What are we leaving them with? A polluted world, a world full of plastic in the oceans. We're trying to get onto that to help improve quality of life. Fish pick up minuscule pieces of plastic in their, while they're ingesting this stuff. It goes back into the ecosystem. Human beings ingest it. And people say, well, there's higher rates of cancer. Why is that? Well, let's take a look. If you're ingesting polyurethane and it's in your blood system, something's got to give. Your liver's got to react to that. Your spleen, whatever it is. I see Dr. John Epps over hiding in the corner there. He's not hiding. Years ago, I can remember Dr. Epps coming from the north to be a physician here. He's still serving our community in a way. And he also served with the Cubs and Scouts, if I remember properly. Probably still involved somewhere in the background. Myself, I had the pleasure of working with the 5th Pembroke Cubs and Beavers. And we planted thousands of trees. And trees breathe. They're the lungs of the earth. The city of Pembroke years ago had policy. I think we were ahead of the curve by having a tree planting policy, where many other municipalities said, wow, why would you want to plant a tree? And now we know why trees need to be planted, so people can, get rid of some of the polluted air. You look at Beijing or places like that across the world, people wear masks to go out. It just isn't the coronavirus. It's just the quality of air. You're sucking in all types of lead and zinc and particulates that will make you sick. Why would we want to do that as a world, as a global entity? Why would we want to do that? So the responsibility doesn't just lie with us. As I said to the young people that were here last, I said, we got to put and what they said was quite true. They said, well, every journey begins with a step. Okay, you're making the step. That's a good thing. Pressure has to be put on to other levels of governments saying, look, we're going to do something. You got to do something too, because you're breathing the same air. And, water doesn't get created over the millennium. We're drinking the same water that Alexander the Great drank, and Polonius and all the other philosophers. The water is there. We're an ecosystem. The earth is a breathing, living organism. And when things go awry, Your Worship, and I'm not going to go on too much longer, when things go wrong, the earth gets even. The earth gets even because it's a living organism. It creates havoc. It creates tidal waves. What we need to do is work together, and I challenge those young people that came here, okay? You want to do something, you want to be an advisory committee, okay, that's great. It's great to have these wonderful, idealistic ideals, but do something about that. Show me as a councillor. I want to know what your mission is. I'm sure all of us do. I want to know what your vision is. And I want to know what 5 things you're going to do during this term of council to make this world a better place and our community a better place. That's what I asked. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. When Councillor Abdallah, at the last occasion, indicated that he was bringing us a notice of motion, that he was going to be bringing forward a motion, I must confess that I was a little taken off guard by what he was talking about on that particular occasion. The motion that's before us, as we know, is to actively pursue the declaration of climate emergency and to form this particular Climate Action Advisory Committee underneath the guidance of staff. I would like to say, and I think it was acknowledged in the presentation that the young folks brought forward on the last occasion, that the city of Pembroke isn't doing anything. Certainly, most recently, the city of Pembroke is partnering with ORES, and I'm hopeful that this year it will take off in the sense that there will be electric charging stations in the city of Pembroke. When we built the fire hall, we made sure that it complied with certain environmental standards. Furthermore, Pembroke even has some electric vehicles in the recreation department. And I emphasize that this is to pursue the declaration of climate emergency. My concern when Councillor Abdallah first came forward with his notice of motion is that I was concerned that it was jumping forward to simply declare the emergency. And as was pointed out by his worship on one occasion, is sometimes I'm perhaps a little more conservative, I think is the word that was used. I would like to know what the repercussions are for making such a declaration. It's not that I'm against it, so certainly I'll support the motion, but it's to pursue it. I think we need to make steps in moderation to ensure that what we're doing is achievable for the city of Pembroke, that we analyze what the costs are associated with making those particular decisions. And I'm interested in what this advisory committee has to say. Similar to, I'm always interested in what the other advisory committees have to say to council. It doesn't mean that every recommendation that comes forward to council will be accepted by council, but it's yet additional information that allows us to make an informed decision as we move forward. So every time, similar to this evening when we were talking about PEDTAC making reference to the different signs, I may not necessarily support everything that comes forward, but it allows me to make a more well-rounded decision. So I'm in support of it. I think it's baby steps, if you will, to getting us towards additional information, allows us to make informed decisions. And maybe there's other things out there that we as a council haven't thought about that won't be exceptionally costly to the taxpayer, but at the same time allows us to walk a little bit lighter on the earth. So I'm in support of it because it's a much more moderate step forward in terms of this particular issue and not simply jumping forward to make a declaration and not knowing what the repercussion of that might be.
Thank you. Councillor Frenier.
So first of all, I have to say that our municipality, we were way ahead of larger communities like Toronto when it came to waste diversion. We were one of the first municipalities to have multi-cycle recycling, like years before Toronto. So why can't we say, yes, we're just little Pembroke, but why don't we be leaders when it comes to this as well? I don't think it's right away, it's saying that we have to put $100,000 into anybody's budget. But we just went through a huge exercise where we came up with a new strategic plan, a direction. Where do we want to be? Where do we see ourselves going? What things do we want to consider over the next few years when we're budgeting and when we're planning? And some of those things were, we want to make sure that we represent all the demographics, youth, seniors, people in between, you know. This is very much similar. To me, by saying we're in a climate, by recognizing we're in a climate emergency, what it's going to do is it's going to put it in the forefront of our minds when we're approving development properties. Are they close to the flood fringe? Are they... So it's things like that. So when it comes to planning, when it comes to where we put our recreational facilities, the weather we're seeing change, it's hotter. So maybe we need to look at rules when it comes to like cooling stations that was mentioned in the presentation that we saw a couple of weeks ago. So we have to start thinking about this. Do we have too many parking lots in our city? Because we know that when there's a parking lot and we get torrential rains, that causes flooding. When there's no paved surface and it's soil, it's absorbed better into our environment. So maybe we need to say we're going to limit the paved areas in our community. We're going to put more green spaces. It's just, it's out there. And I don't think by saying, oh, you know, it's a climate emergency, that we mean that there's going to be a volcano erupting on the Ottawa River, because we know that just isn't going to happen. So I'm in support of this only because I think it needs to be in our minds when we're planning, when we're spending taxpayers' dollars, because we don't want everything to wash away. And I mentioned it recently when we were talking about the marina and fixing up the dock. Is there anything we can do in the event that we have these floods every year to protect our docking system so we're not spending, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars? So again, it's just so it's part of the conversation. So I will be supporting that motion. And I think it's just a way of expediting it. Why ask this committee to meet for 3 or 4 weeks when this is really where we want to go? We want this to be part of our conversation. Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to stand up and claim to be an expert on climate change. I see what's happening in the world around us, but I do look forward to striking this new committee and have these wonderful young people who are so concerned about their community, the environment, the world at large, to see what they can bring us. I'm all ears, and I look forward to learning from you and what you have to say. So thank you.
I would also like to make a comment, so I'd ask the Deputy Mayor to take the chair, please. I'll be brief. What I want to do is basically say I support the motion as presented this evening, because I believe it will help raise awareness for the environmental challenges that we all face, whether we're a municipality, a province, or the country and the world. But I was pleased to see that, and I know small steps for our provincial government, but I want to quote Jeff Urick, who's the minister in charge of the environment and conservation. I know it's small steps, but he states, our government is taking action in the global fight to reduce emissions and strengthen our resilience to the impacts of climate change that are already happening in our communities, such as more frequent extreme weather events and flooding. This impact assessment will help, and this is what they're creating, this impact assessment will help the province, municipalities, Indigenous communities, and other local partners make more informed and timely decisions to keep our communities and people healthy and safe. So I believe the onus is on us as a council to commit to protecting our environment, our economy, and community from the impacts of climate change. Thank you.
I just wanted to make one more point to follow up on what Councillor Lafreniere said. This starts the process, and it puts it out there. And it's sort of like Mr. Lappy and I were talking the other day, the Accessibility Committee, which Councillor Reeve chairs, advisory committee. If we did end up and hopefully adopt a climate emergency plan, and the committee comes back with recommendations and council adopts a climate action plan, it doesn't mean that we're going to go out and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on items. What it means, it puts it at the forefront, puts it in our mind. So every time staff or council makes the decision, we can say, well, how can we help the environment with this? For example, we're going to be having an active living master plan, which is a 10-year roadmap of facilities, recreational, cultural programming. Where are we now? Where do we want to go for 10 years to benefit all our citizens? So this would play into that. It'd be in our mindset. The pool, the aquatic complex, hopefully we get our grant. We want trailblazing, energy efficient, green energy complex. Bike lanes. When we get our grant from the government for the West End 3 to 4 year development plan for Pembroke West, how can we fit bike lanes into there? How can we fit bike lanes that go up to the pool? So every time we do infrastructure upgrades, like we did on Everett Street, we have a sidewalk and a bike lane together. You know, we paint a line, there it is. But it's a small step that we do. How can we plant more trees? Electric bus fleet. I see all these cities getting grants for electric buses, and there's an intake coming up soon. So we want to apply for that, you know. Maybe we can get a couple electric small buses around Pembroke, partner with Laurentian Valley. Anything is possible, but this is the first step. So it's not going to cost millions of dollars. It's in the forefront. It's a culture that you have and a conversation. And these are the things that we have to do. As politicians, we have to make commitments, climate change, and resolutely implement them to be responsible. And I want to thank the committee for their energy and their passion. And we're the leading community in Renfrew County, and we have to adopt this motion.
Thank you. Okay, the motion is on the floor. I'd like to call the vote. All those in favor? Yes, you can have it recorded. Yes?
Deputy Mayor Sherwood. Yay. Councillor Levy.
Yay.
Councillor Abdallah.
Yay.
Councillor Giacono.
Yay.
Councillor Plummer.
Nay.
Councillor Fernier.
Yay.
Mayor Lemay.
Yay.
6 yeas, 1 nay, the motion carries.
All right, I'd like to go to the mayor's report now. I want to take just a few moments to comment on Snow Spree. I want to thank Elijah McHugh, our recreation programmer, for his leadership in staging a very successful Snow Spree this year. Council appreciates very much the support and assistance from our community when organizing events for our residents and for the visitors. This year, we had many organizations provide both financial and volunteer support. Thank you, SRB Technologies, the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 72, King Sports, the Pembroke Professional Firefighters Association, the Pembroke Lumber Kings, the Civitan Club, the Kiwanis Club, the Rotary Club, the Boys and Girls Club, Family and Children's Services, and the PBIA. Thank you, volunteers, for giving the most precious thing you will ever own, which is your time and talent for helping out the community. Council appreciates everyone's efforts in making Snow Spree 2020 very successful, so thank you, everyone. Notices of motion. Councillor updates. Councillor Lafreniere.
The coldest night of the year is coming up, February 22nd, and I want to say that we have put a team in. So along with myself, Councillor Reevy, Councillor Abdallah, and Councillor Jackno, we're going to be putting on our toques and doing, we're not sure yet, 2 to 5K.
I'm not jogging.
So I urge everyone to either go on the website, it's cnoy.org, and you can sponsor Team Pembroke Cares is the name of our team. So you just got to find the location. And I just want to tell everyone a little bit about coldest night of the year. The coldest night of the year is Saturday, February 22nd. It's a family-friendly national walkathon that helps raise funds for charities that serve hungry, homeless, and hurting people in our town. And by walking at dusk during a cold winter's night, we'll feel a hint of the challenge faced by many who experience homelessness in the winter. And by fundraising, we'll be contributing much-needed money to the Grind Community Kitchen and the many other services that are provided through Family Children's Services and other volunteers in our community. So please support our team. Thank you very much. Or get out and join yourself.
Thank you, Councillor Abdallah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Your Worship, fellow councillors. The next meeting of the Pembroke Neighborhood Watch Group is on March 2nd. It's a Monday at the new fire hall. And we're very encouraged by the energy we had from the first meeting. And so the goal of the second meeting on March 2nd, Constable Peaver will be there, the community policing officer. The goal is to develop some zones and talk about canvassing so we can get the 51% per neighborhood in certain pockets of the community and start getting approval from the Police Services Board to put some signage up and have some approved zones. So that's on March 2nd, and I'll announce it again at the next council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Giacono.
Your Worship, in regards to Snow Spree, I just want to bring attention to the Knights of Columbus, who again provided hot dogs and hot chocolate at the Care for the Grey Sisters Mother Hill. I did give them a bit of a hand. They asked me to help. We went through 300 hot dogs and 100 gallons of hot chocolate, and there were approximately from 11 till 2 during the day. There must have been 200 children there participating. So the Knights wanted to extend to the city again the great organization putting on the Snow Spree, and it's a blast being part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Reevy.
Thank you, Your Worship. With regards to recent media reports concerning Renfrew County District Health Unit, and it's all around the modernization of public health. So today, there was to be a consultation with the province in Ottawa, of which we were invited to attend. Timing is everything. The consultation was canceled due to the coronavirus, naturally public health's expert involvement in this. So today, the executive committee, I'm a member of that, met in the morning to discuss a relationship with the County of Renfrew, and that's where a lot of this media reporting is coming from, the county's position paper. In the afternoon, we met with county representatives and had an excellent discussion together on the way they're seeing how the county, the city, the district can move forward with public health, and how the Board of Health was seeing it. So I think there are good things coming, and that all of our residents at the end of this process will be in good hands when it comes to the health of our population.
Thank you. All right, we'll be moving into closed session. Deputy Mayor?
Your worship, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Reevy, that this meeting become a closed meeting to discuss a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or a local board. Thank you.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gervais, seconded by Councillor Reevy, that this meeting become a closed meeting to discuss a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. All those in favor? Okay, we'll now move into closed session. Thank you.